let's get started with the extinction part, and I'm going to do some news headlines that caught my eye this week related to that, and some of the things that are going on in the world. You know, the evolution of society, evolution of our economics, evolution of our military and politics, right? Okay, and here's one of the things that came up. It was these Taliban. As you know, they took over the government in Afghanistan. It's now known as Taliban. And they said, yeah, women can study, but they have to study separate from men. You know, no, segregation. We have segregation in the schools over there, okay? And they believe that women should study certain things that are authorized by Islam, okay, according to them, their reading of their scriptures, right? And I suppose these are the subject matters that the girls are going to be looking at in college, you know, babysitting, midwifing, cooking, sewing. Is that what they're going to be studying? Because the article says that this comes from the Taliban. Okay, this is what they say. This is the answer they gave. They said women should give birth and raise children. That's their job. Okay, they should be limited to that and nothing else. Okay. Well, I'm sure a lot of women are struggling to get to Taliban land, to Kabul. Please don't crowd the airplanes, girls, okay? There's room enough for all of you, okay? So what I did as a result of that, when I saw that, you know, that the notion that the Taliban have that women should only give birth and raise children, that's their job, that's their only function in life, I ordered a Taliban dictionary, okay? And I received it this morning, this very morning, from Kabul, directly from Kabul. And I looked up the word woman. I mean, what does the word woman mean to the Taliban? Okay, and I found an answer. I found it in their dictionary. It says woman, a womb, uterus, procreator. Okay, so now I understand why they have that. Women should only give birth and raise children. Okay, so now you know where that comes from. And you know, there's a fellow who in fact, seems to agree with them, you know, and he put a note, and this goes like this. He says, I didn't say ask women if they'll give up their privileges willingly. Of course they won't. I said, take their privileges away from them, meaning totally disregard for what they want. I'm not sure too many women will agree with him, but what I can say is that, you know, I think he found his calling. He should probably travel to Afghanistan and become a Taliban. What do you think? I mean, you know, let me know. I think he's not part of this part of the world. He should, you know, maybe join the Taliban. Okay, that would probably be his calling. Okay, another thing in the news related to extinction, in this case, population. As I've been arguing, you know, population will increase at a slower rate as time goes by from now on. We have no chance of increasing the rate of growth of population, meaning we can't increase demand, coupled with the fact that we're in a service economy. I think those two things are seal our fate. Okay, and so here in the news we have one case, Mr. Putin. He says Russia seeks to stimulate the birth rate. Says President Vladimir Putin has announced a series of plans to increase the number of children being born in Russia from an average birth rate of under 1.5 per woman to 1.7 within 4 years. Very ambitious plan. Okay, on Wednesday he told Parliament, his Parliament, right, the Duma, the birth rate is falling again. Yeah, all these legislators will do something about it before pledging state funding for new mothers. And you know, and they've been doing this because this news is from January 2020, but there was another one now in August, and they've been putting out this kind of news for Russia for the last 5-6 years at least, maybe more. I've seen several articles talking about the dire problem that Russia has, that its population is not increasing. And some people always tell me, well, we should cover the land, and or they tell me that the world is crowded. And it turns out Russia is an empty country. You know, all the people are in big cities. You know, the 5-6 cities Russia has, big cities, that's it. You know, on the other side of the Urals, it's completely empty. It's just bare land. Not completely bare. I mean, it's got trees and everything, but I mean, it's underdeveloped land. And if nobody goes there and builds a new town, we're not going to have more population in Russia. And the same can be said for Australia, Argentina, primarily those empty countries, Algeria. They're big countries that are not creating new cities. They're not colonizing the land. Okay, and so all I can suggest to him is that there is a solution to his problem. And it came from a bit of news that I found somewhere else, and it looks like this. And it says that Polis, first openly gay governor elected, marries in Colorado. And I said, okay, I looked down to the article and I found this note at the bottom that says, talking about his sweetheart, right? He says, they have been together for 18 years and have 2 children, a 7-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl. Now, I'm sure Putin could learn from these people. I mean, instead of persecuting, LGBT, XYZs and so on, why doesn't he encourage them to have children like these 2 fellas did? Okay, if that happens, I'm sure the rate would increase in Russia, and they could populate, the other side of the Urals completely. So, maybe he just should take some pointers from these 2 fellas. Okay. Anyways, here we have a statistic. Okay, it says where women are having the most children on the planet. And you can see the countries that are mentioned there. They're not the biggest countries population-wise in the world. But what they all have in common is that most of their land or most of the people in their land are agriculturalists. They're still in the farms. They're still out there in the wilderness. And so what is my argument? My argument, again, I want people to quote me right because they always misquote me. My argument is that population stops when people come to the cities. It's got nothing to do with the efforts that non-governmental organizations, NGOs, do out there. All this work, I mean, that helps. 1 child per family, China, that helps. But the real problem is when people come to the cities. You can't have children in the cities. A city is not a place to raise children, and people have other things on their mind than having children. Among them, staying alive one more day. They can barely reach the end of the month. They're not going to have 10 children like our great-grandfathers had, hundreds of years ago. So the issue is that as long as you, and this gives you an idea, because these are all agriculturalist countries still. They're backward countries in the sense that people still have not come to the cities. You don't have big, great cities in these countries except maybe 1 or 2. The rest of the country is barren, and that's where most of the people live. And so as long as people live in the country, they will have children. When they come to the city, I don't care if they're poor, I don't care if they're black, I don't care if the women are old or young, they will not have children. Okay, so it's got nothing to do with, I can't say it doesn't have to do with money because money does play a part in it, but the main ingredient is going from the country to the city. It's that transition that stops population growth. Okay, that's my argument. Whether you accept it or not, that is my argument, so don't misquote me. Okay, and so here, it doesn't matter what these few countries do. You can see the rate has been dropping steadily since 1963, and there is no end in sight, and it will continue to drop. That's the growth rate for the entire population on Earth. That means that it doesn't matter what a few countries in Africa especially do, they will not be able to reverse that trend. Okay? That trend is fixed, guaranteed, can't change. And I even say that the drop is going to be sooner because extinction is going to occur before 2050. That's my take on that. Okay, so I don't think we're going to make it to 2050 zero population growth. Zero population growth is going to occur much, much sooner. Okay, here's another bit of news concerns extinction. This one you should really keep in mind. Okay. Several headlines here. One from the Examiner. The world is a jungle. France fumes at U.S.-Australian nuclear submarine deal. Okay? They made a deal there, military stuff. Okay, they sold some submarines to Australia, and because of that, Australia's not buying some hardware from France. So the French are upset. Okay, and then China also is not very happy with that. It's a Cold War mentality. China slams new U.S. pact with U.K. and Australia. Okay, and then just to add to that, first we have Afghanistan. The Americans left, right? American government decided to leave Afghanistan like it left Vietnam, right? And it pulled some missiles out of Saudi Arabia and Yemen. And so the issue is whether there's a shifting of U.S. resources, military resources, from the Middle East and Europe to the east, to the total east. Is China a more important adversary or a problem for the United States than the Middle East. So, you only have so many resources, and you got to find out how you're going to allocate those resources. And I think what you're seeing today, maybe it's been happening for some time, but now they're taking some of these major moves. They're moving the pawns on the chessboard, okay? And I think the decision has been made to make a strategic move, and that is use more resources in the East than you do in the Middle East and even in Europe. It's like we have Europe in our back pocket. We have the Middle East, those countries that are still loyal to the United States, that's in the back pocket as well. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not probably going to switch sides, at least so easily, Maybe they can control that through diplomatic means. And meanwhile, shift the hardware to the East for the rising sun, okay? That's what I think is happening. Okay, just a bit of news for you there to ponder. Another bit of news, and this is an interesting one, okay? It affects a lot of people today. 7 ways men live without working in America. Saying that since 1950 to today, 70 years now, the number of men who work within working age that work has been dropping. And today it was in the 80s, 80 something, 85 I think it was, and today it's barely 66, 67% of working age men that are actually working. All the rest are stay-at-home dads or brothers or sons or whatever. Okay, and these are the reasons the article says that men are staying at home. Okay, unemployment insurance. Okay, you can include Social Security with that. I mean welfare. Okay, early retirement, pensions, disability, and lawsuits. Okay, savings, trading stocks, and Bitcoin. If you can do Bitcoin and you're doing okay, why are you going to get a job? Working for cash. Under the table, black market. Okay. Living off family members, okay? Lots of people doing that. Illegal work, primarily drugs, okay? Selling drugs. And living off the land, the guy says, I'm sick of society. I'm going to go to the woods, do some fishing, hunting, carry my gun, and live, like a real man should live. Okay, so those are some of the things that are happening out there. And what is interesting, the rate of women who work has gone up, while those of men have gone down. So men are staying at home, again, with brothers, with parents, with whoever, okay, sometimes alone. And women are going out there and getting jobs. And what the men are doing is living off the fat of the land, so to speak. They find ways of living without having to work. Okay, interesting trend. Okay, the question is whether that trend can continue. It's for you to ponder. Okay, we have Mr. Trump here. Another bit of news. He says, predicts America will end within 3 years. Just the amount of time that I guess Mr. Biden has as president. So he says America will come to a dead stop in 3 years. And then he said the former president also hinted to Newsmax host Sean Spicer that he may run for the presidency in 2024. Now, why would anyone who thinks that America is coming to an end in 3 years look for a job as the president? There seems to be a contradiction there, in my mind at least, okay? And I don't have anything against Mr. Trump. I want you to know that. I'm just asking a question. I'm saying, why would he say the world is going to end in 3 years, or the United States? For me, it's the world, because if the United States ends, it's the end for the world. But why would he want to be president if the United States comes to a dead stop? Which exactly, he didn't specify what he meant by that, but I'm assuming he means that, economically it's going to come to a dead stop, and by inference, China is going to pass the United States. That's, I guess, what's going through his mind. And, again, if the United States comes to a dead stop, I think it's the end of the world, not the end of America, okay? So we have to bolster the United States any way we can, whether you like it or not, whether you love the United States government or not, irrelevant. We have to help the United States government stay afloat, because if it collapses, we're all in trouble. That's my argument, okay? That's my pitch to you. Okay, one fellow says, hey, don't worry about it. He says, the United States will recover, or the economy, the global economy will recover. He says, I disagree that it will be a complete downfall after America. It will slow down trade and therefore slow down food across the globe. But he feels that it's going to somehow come back on its feet. It's just going to be a dip, another depression, another recession, whatever you want to call it. I think that if there is a collapse, I call it extinction, not depression. Okay, but again, that's me. All I can say is that I cannot imagine us recovering from the next major collapse. Okay. Okay, another fellow has a different opinion. He says, I never said U.S. would become part of the Chinese empire. One thing I suggested the other day, that if the United States falls back, some people are maybe insinuating that the United States is going to be a province, a state of China, just one of the colonies out there, the small economies that pay tribute to the big empire, the new Rome. That's the insinuation, right? China is not part of a Western empire, okay? The West is doomed. Whoa. The Western nations are using the Great Reset. That's, I talked about it a little bit the other day. We have this fellow, Schwab, and he created this notion of the Great Reset, where essentially there's going to be a new world order in which money is not going to be a problem. In fact, he says something along the lines, I can't remember the exact words, that you're not going to have a penny, but you're going to be happy. So quite different than when I went to college. One professor said, the first day of class, in this class, we're going to define happiness as money. If you have money, you are happy. Economics professor. The Western nations are using the Great Reset and COVID to introduce incremental authoritarianism, so they can default under debt and pivot to electronic money. They can then print without borrowing in modern monetary theory. Well, they can print money without Bitcoin. They've been printing money for as long as I can remember. Okay, so printing money is no big deal. Today, in fact, all you need to do is just put another zero in a computer, and you got another billion, another trillion, in the loop. So creating money is no big deal. Okay? And they've been doing that. With electronic money, they will also be able to completely control what the population used that money for and tax every cent in true Marxist fashion. This is again comes from this fellow Schwab, for those of you who are not familiar with him, and he's talking about the Great Reset. Okay, and so this fellow got that information from Mr. Schwab. Right? They will ultimately fail as Marxism always fails, and this time maybe billions will die fulfilling part of your theory. Okay, it's not part of my entire theory is that the entire system will collapse and there will be no possibility, even the possibility of recovery. Okay, when money is no more, meaning people lost faith in money, in God we don't trust anymore. We don't accept money, and at that point, government, the Illuminati, whoever you want up there, has no control. They don't even have control over the army. They don't have control of the government. They don't have control over anything because money is no more. Nobody will accept money. How do you compel without money? Okay, so if money disappears, compulsion disappears. And by compulsion, I don't mean, putting a gun to your head in that sense. I mean that, you go to work as a policeman, as a guardsman, whatever, only because they pay you and because you need to make a living. And so you're expecting a salary. But if you're not expecting a salary, why are you going to go to work? More than likely, you're going to use your gun for something else. Okay? It will ultimately fail, okay? And when that happens, sometime in the 2030s, okay, he's very optimistic, we will have our opportunity to create something new in government. Something new in government. I'm wondering what he's referring to. What kind of government do you plan to have if the economy collapses? And I mean, total collapse. I mean, Bitcoin is just a number in a computer. Even checking accounts are money in a computer. That's all they are. It's just all these are just numbers in there. That's it. It's all abstract. And even if it were real, if it were gold, something you exchange with your hands, okay, so what? If no one accepts your gold because it has no value, it's just a rock, a piece of stone, and nobody wants that piece of stone anymore. He wants a piece of limestone or whatever. Then money is no more. Your gold is useless. Your diamond is useless. Your pearls, your Bitcoin, your dollar bills, your euros, all that's worthless. You go to the store, nobody wants it. You want to pay someone his salary in money and he doesn't accept it. Okay, and so the question is, can that happen? And a lot of people say, no, it can't happen. And so they confuse the word can with the word will. Okay, you got to distinguish between can and will. One of my papers, I had to state that because it's not so obvious to a lot of people. Can it happen? Sure, it can happen. In fact, I can do a little thought experiment and show you that it can happen. All the people in the world, all the rulers, get together and they decide, no, not that COVID is going to go, no. They decide that money is no more. Everyone that shuts down their own money. Everybody in each of the countries, they decide to eliminate money. Can they do that? Well, I'm saying they can because I'm saying that's something we have within our power. Okay, we have the ability to destroy money if we want to deliberately. Can we? We can. If we want to, we can. We can destroy money tomorrow. We can destroy all the computers tomorrow, and there's no more money. All this fake money, that's all this abstract money. So can we? Yes, we can. Will we? That's a separate question. So we should not confuse will with can. Okay? And that's important because if we can, then we can still fit extinction within that can scenario. Okay? If we can destroy humanity today without throwing the bombs. All we have to do is destroy money today deliberately by maybe killing all the computers any way you want. Okay? We can say money is no more. We all agree that money is no more. Yeah, we destroy the economy. So can? We can. Will we? That's a separate issue. Okay, so do not confuse can with will. Okay, so what was this fellow talking about? He's talking about this fellow. This fellow goes against the previous one, Carl Schwab. Please look up Ernst Wolf, he says. Okay, so I look him up, and he has this video in which he says, uncovering the corona narrative. And what does he say? Well, these are the main points that he's got there. This fellow, he talks against this New World Order, specifically all this COVID thing that's going on. Okay, so he's dead set against it. He says this is a hoax. It was prepared by the governments, pre-planned. Okay, this is what his argument is. Okay, it says we're dealing with a complete destruction of the global financial system, but we are also on the threshold of reshuffling of a global strategic order. Again, a lot of these people think that we're getting rid of one order and replacing it with some other kind of order. Okay, this is what's going through their minds. Well, everybody thinks in the same way. They're so sick and tired of the politicians. They say we got to get rid of all this, and so they say, okay, we get rid of this. What do we replace it with? And so, you have the communists and the capitalists. The capitalists say, well, we're going to be trading with our neighbors, and we get government off our backs. Okay, they're the anarcho-capitalists. And the other guys, we'll call them the communists, for lack of a better word. We get rid of all the money, and we all live happily ever after. I don't know how, maybe exchanging goods or whatever. Just everybody's happy if they could get government off their backs. And the question is, can we live without government? We're a social animal. We created government. Can we get rid of this big monster, this, what is it? This monster we created is running amok. I was thinking of, not Einstein. I was thinking of the other fellow. I can't remember the name now. But, okay, it says, big credit bubble ever in the world. Okay, we got a big credit bubble. Loans that need to be repaid can't be paid anymore. This guy's supposedly an expert in economics. He's a journalist who specializes in economics. Okay, says the system is beyond saving. Okay, the derivatives bubble, 700 trillion. I talked about that in the past. Okay, and I got the same number somewhere. We don't know how much it is, but this is a ballpark figure. Okay, 700 trillion. We are in the final phase of this financial system. We are witnessing the looting orgy by major investors. Okay, so he's saying that the reason this COVID was created so that they could do all this looting behind our backs. Okay, well, there's a lot of conspiracy in his language, and some of it is okay, some of it may not be, at least from my point of view. What I agree with him is that the system is collapsing. That we agree. Where we don't agree is that he believes that there is salvation at the end of the line, and one of the ways you do salvation is by opposing what these people are trying to do today. Okay, and a lot of people are in tune with that. They say, I'm not going to follow, I'm not going to get my vaccine, etc. And they protest against the government for forcing them to do something they don't want to do. And my only concern there with this COVID is turning this into a conspiracy, and no one has been able to answer that question. Even this fellow, he hasn't even raised it. None of them have raised it. And the issue is it possible that Cuba, which is an enemy of the United States, Iran, which is an enemy of the United States, and so on and so forth, that they all agreed in advance, before this COVID came out, did they all agree and say, let's do this conspiracy all together, all the governments on earth, we all agree that we're going to create this COVID, and we're going to tell our people, each one in his own country, right? both enemies and friends, we're all going to agree to tell our populations, our respective populations, that there's this disease out there that's going to kill us, and so that's going to force them to get the shots. And meanwhile, we loot the banks somehow and some behind their backs. Well, I doubt that happened. I have until someone can answer that question for me. I have to believe there is a virus out there. Okay, for those of you who believe in virus, because that's another group. Okay, but for those of you who believe in viruses, okay, and do you really think that all these governments in advance, before what was it, 2019 December or thereabouts, or beginning of 2020, they all decided before that, in advance, that they were all going to do this to their own populations, and they're going to create this inexistent problem, saying, hey, we got this COVID, everybody's got to get a shot, and blah, 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 and distract people's attention from the real problem, which is the economy. And meanwhile, they threw the economy, told everybody, go home, we're going to send you your paycheck, and don't bother even to come to work, because maybe there is no work, okay? And so on down the line. And so I doubt that everybody, this was premeditated. Now, there is a twist of that, and the only one that I can allow in my mind, okay, and that's that, the United States went to this town in China. What was it, in 2019? There was a military get-together, and according to Chinese, the Americans brought the COVID with them, and according to Americans, the COVID started in that city because the Chinese created it in a lab. Okay, so each one is pointing their fingers at each other. Great. It could have been that someone created this virus. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know enough about that topic. All I can say is that's the only way I can conceive of a premeditated action where someone created it for whatever reason, maybe for the reason I just explained, to be able to loot the banks and change the system. And they threw it out into the world, and then countries like Cuba and Iran had no choice but to accept the fact that some of their people were getting sick. And so it's not that they agreed in advance, but they took care of the problem once the problem was upon them. And that's the only scenario that I can see other than the COVID being no conspiracy whatsoever, just something that arose out there. Okay, so those are the two possibilities. But if someone can tell me why all these governments agreed, then I'll rest better at nights. Okay, so here are my questions for all those people who want to tackle them. Okay, was the rise of women inevitable? The fact that women matched to us, are us meaning men. So we have women that came up and men who came down, a little bit, and so they kind of are demanding their rights. Was that inevitable? Was giving women the vote inevitable? I mean, almost every country on the planet, in fact, I think all of them give women the vote today. I don't know if there's any exception. And 100 years ago, it wasn't like that. In fact, 100 years ago, women did not, a little more than 100 years ago, women did not have the right to vote. And so, yeah, they've come up the ranks, right? They've become our equals. Was the increase in homosexuality among humans inevitable? Was that something that people just came out of the closet, or is it something that changed in our genetic code? Okay. Was the economic expansion of the Chinese empire inevitable? And if it wasn't China, it could have been someone else, right? Was that inevitable for another empire to rise and challenge the American empire? There's always been empires that have risen and fallen, and when one fell, the other one rose, okay? And so was that inevitable? Is this like mandated by history? Is that the way Mother Nature compels man to behave? Create new empires? I mean, we have new companies. Remember, companies in the past were manufacturing companies primarily, and they've been replaced by what? By a lot of these internet companies, Facebook, Amazon. They're all internet companies. And so, yeah, one empire comes down, which is all this manufacturing stuff, anyone who put their bets on that. And what rose were the internet empires. So, again, we see that there as well. And then related to that, were the results of Calhoun's utopian experiments inevitable? Okay, and that's related to extinction. And there you see it at the bottom. That's taken from Calhoun's experiment. I think that's number 25. And he put a bunch of mice, about 4 pairs of mice in an enclosure. And he let them reproduce. And they overflowed. There were over 2,000 mice after a little while. And then the population crashed, went into extinction. He had to stop the experiment at the last moment because he just couldn't see the results, how the whole thing ended. It just was for him, he had seen it several times. He did many experiments, and so he didn't want to see it again, so he shut it down. But it was going into extinction. They weren't reproducing anymore. Sounds like humans. But a lot of people question that. They say, no, no, this is a little different. Okay.